This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Europe's biggest Russian gas buyers were racing to find alternative fuel supplies on Monday and even looking at burning more coal to cope with reduced gas flows from Russia that threaten an energy crisis in winter if stores are not refilled. The crisis and sky-high gas prices add to the headache facing policymakers already fretting about surging inflation and a dimming economic outlook. Italy's Eni said it had been informed by Russia's Gazprom that it would receive only part of its request for gas supplies on Monday, pushing the country closer to declaring a state of alert that will spark gas-saving measures.
China's crude oil imports from Russia soared 55% from a year earlier to a record level in May, displacing Saudi Arabia as the top supplier, as refiners cashed in on discounted supplies amid sanctions on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. Imports of Russian oil, including supplies pumped via the East Siberia Pacific Ocean pipeline and seaborne shipments from Russia's European and Far Eastern ports, totaled nearly 8.42 million tons, according to data from the Chinese General Administration of Customs. That's equivalent to roughly 1.98 million barrels per day, BPD, and up a quarter from 1.59 million barrels of oil per day in April.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Oil prices were stable on Monday, struggling to reverse last week's losses as the market balanced tightening supplies with concerns about slowing global economic growth. Brent crude futures were down 14 cents, or 0.12%, at $112.98 a barrel by 12:46 GMT. Front-month prices tumbled 7.3% last week for their first weekly fall in 5. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 13 cents, or 0.12%, at $109.69. Front-month prices dropped 9.2% last week for the first decline in 8 weeks. Friday's steep price fall can be seen as a delayed reaction to the concerns about recession that have already been weighing on the prices of other commodities for some time, said Commerzbank analyst Carsten Fritsch.
Saudi Arabia's April crude exports rose to a two-year peak of 7.382 million barrels per day, BPD, in April. Data from the Joint Organizations Data Initiative, JODI, showed on Monday. Crude exports in April rose about 2% from about 7.235 million barrels of oil per day reported for March. The world's largest oil exporter's April crude production also rose to its highest level in 2 years at 10.441 million barrels of oil per day from 10.300 million barrels of oil per day in the previous month. Saudi Arabia is on track to lift oil production capacity by more than 1 million barrel per day to over 13 million barrels BPD by the end of 2026 or start of 2027, the energy minister said last month. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. China's aluminium imports in May fell 16.4% from the same month a year earlier, government data showed on Saturday, amid high overseas prices and weaker domestic consumption. The country brought in 188,469 tons of unwrought aluminium and products, including primary metal and unwrought, alloyed aluminium, last month, according to data from the General Administration of Customs. Monthly aluminium imports into China, the world's biggest producer and consumer of the metal, have been below 200,000 tons so far this year as an arbitrage window for cheaper overseas metal shut and downstream demand weakened due to COVID-19-induced lockdowns. The London Metal Exchange, LME, approved rules on Friday for members to report all over-the-counter, OTC, positions. A move taken after off-exchange trading was partly blamed for a wild spike in nickel prices in March. This will improve the ability of the LME to oversee activity holistically through increased visibility, ensuring future market stability, the exchange said in a statement. The exchange, owned by Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited, was forced to suspend nickel trading and cancel all deals on March 8 because of disorderly activity caused partly by a large OTC short nickel position. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
China's corn imports from Ukraine in May plunged compared with a year ago, customs data showed on Monday, after the conflict between Russia and Ukraine cut shipments. China, the world's top importer of corn, brought in 126,727 tons of the yellow grain from Ukraine, down sharply from 1.26 million tons a year ago, according to data from the General Administration of Customs. China imported 695,585 tons of corn from Ukraine in April. Grain exports from Ukraine, a major producer and exporter in the global market, got cut off after Russia invaded the European country in late February. China's corn shipments from Ukraine, its second largest supplier of the grain after the United States, fell as a result.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.